Kristen Waringa here. So the first thing I want to teach you is how I block out my day and what things I'm doing on a daily basis. So some of you may have heard about the time blocking system. But basically what this is each week I print out a schedule, and you can actually find free downloads if you just Google it, but I just made one out of Excel, super basic and easy, but essentially it has Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then up at the top here, it starts at 5 a.m., and then down below, it ends at 8:30. So my goal is to wake up every morning at 5 and work out for half an hour. So that first time block, 5 a.m., is gonna be workout, because these are half an hour increments. And here's the key, you guys. When you look at this from an overall perspective, you want to kind of highlight or chunk out your office hours. So you could literally take a highlighter and don't do it, I made this mistake. Don't highlight the hours over here if every single day is gonna look different. So maybe your blocks in the actual days themselves are going to be highlighted. And so those are your office hours, and you really want to set office hours so that you have a separation. When you work from home, it is really hard to separate this, but you need that separation between business and family / household stuff. So what we do is we highlight our business hours, and then you're gonna write the tasks that you're going to do into those business hours. You also can fill out if you have soccer or kids activities in the evening. Write them in, because that way they are just constant, you know what they are. And then you're gonna go in maybe the night before. This is what I do. The night before, I write down what I'm doing within my office hours. And so those highlighted sections are very specific. And what I mean by that is, so maybe 5:30 in the morning, I'm gonna check my email. This is just an example. Each day is a little bit different, but maybe I'm gonna start by checking my email for half an hour. And then maybe I'm going to check my Facebook messages for a half an hour or an hour. And then perhaps I'm going to check my Facebook parties. So I do parties on Facebook. I'm gonna check my Facebook parties for the next half an hour. And for me, I usually have about an hour and a half in the morning where it's just work time, maybe before my kids get up, or I let them watch a little bit of cartoons in the morning, just not very much, a little bit, right? It's just so that I can have a little bit of me time. And then we do breakfast, we get ready for school, we do all those things. So there's a chunk of time where it is not business related, it's not business in the morning. And then I get my kids off to school. I usually, I still have a young one at home, he's 2. So we'll usually play an activity with him, get him set up on some independent play, like maybe we'll make a train track or a marble track or something, he'll be playing, and then I can come down for another hour or so while he's playing and do a little bit of work. Then it is lunchtime. I get him lunch. Maybe there's like a snack in there somewhere for him. I get him lunch and he goes down for a nap. And so then I have an hour and a half in the afternoon that I can spend on my business. And so usually that is when I schedule calls, is during that nap time. But I can schedule calls when he's awake too. It's just that time tends to work out great. And then I have another break in my day where it's get Harper off the bus, and maybe we're doing snack time, we're doing family activities, we have soccer to run to. And so there's a really big chunk of time later in the day where I'm not working my business. And then kids go to bed usually around 7:30, and that gives me an hour to work my business in the evening. And then I try and go to bed at 9 because, well, I get in bed at 9, and then I maybe give myself a half an hour of me time before I try and fall asleep. So if I'm waking up at 5, I want to try and be asleep at 9:30 if I can. That is kind of what a typical day looks like for me. Now, when you're doing this, you want to be sure that you are very specific about your time. So those half an hour time blocks, like I said earlier, I said, some of them might be checking email, checking Facebook messages, checking my Facebook parties. Those are the kinds of activities that I am doing on a regular basis. Pretty much every single day, right? Every day I have parties. And then I'm gonna check in with my new people. I'm gonna check in with my aspiring leaders. I do that on maybe a weekly basis or a couple times a week, depending on what their needs are and how many of them I have. And so here's the key thing, you guys. You cannot let your schedule be driven by your notifications or your messages. So I think this is where people lack discipline, is that they let their day be driven by messages or emails or Facebook notifications. And when you do that, you're not efficient with your time. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're working on a project. So maybe you're checking your Facebook parties, or maybe you're making host packets, if you send host packets, if you do that in your business, whatever. You're working on a project, you're working on one specific activity, and you get some notifications and you get distracted and you go look at your notifications, and then you're knee deep in notifications and you realize you just spent half an hour on notifications, or you don't realize how much time you spent and you don't go back to the activity, or you do, and then now all of a sudden you have to get your kids off the bus or whatever. Whereas if you ignore your notifications and just focus on that specific activity for that duration of time, you write check notifications as one of your things to do on your day. Here's another example. Let's say you're working on a project, working on one specific activity, whatever, and you get Facebook messages or you get some emails. Oh my gosh, I need to go answer this person. You go answer the person, and then you come back to your activity. You work on your activity, and then you get more messages. You go check your messages, back to your activity. Every time you switch back and forth between those activities, you're losing productivity, and you need to stop. If you want to be productive, then I would suggest you stop. If you don't care, that's great. However, there's a time in my day where I check messages, and maybe it's 2 times a day I'm checking messages, and I give myself like a half an hour for that. And so I can go back and forth with someone within that half an hour time block, but people ask me, well, what do you do when you want to have that back and forth, and you're only checking messages for like an hour a day, like 2 half-hour increments, like maybe 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening? I'm like, well, that's just how it goes. Like, I'm not going to be on my phone all day long. I'm not going to be on my computer all day long. That's just not what I'm going to do. So you have to time block, or you have to schedule certain activities, and you cannot let notifications or messages or emails drive your focus and where you're putting your efforts, because otherwise your productivity goes down and you get nothing done. Or you think, okay, I was on my computer all day, or I was on my phone all day, and what did I accomplish? Nothing, right? How many days do we feel like that? So stop doing that, and start to get disciplined with your time. Start to block out your activities and what you're doing on a regular basis. It is super helpful. The other thing that you need to do is you need to turn off notifications, like on your phone, or on your computer. So if you're on your computer and it's like ping, message, ping, notification, ping, like all that stuff is distraction and pulls you away from what you're doing. So I actually mute my computer when I'm working on it, because I do not want dings every single time I get messages. So I mute it, so I have no clue when a message is coming in. And same thing on my phone. Some people might gasp or freak out at this, but I do not have notifications on my phone, and I don't want them on my phone, because then I'm getting distracted. And honestly, what I've found is that if I can do most of my work from a laptop or from an iPad or something, for me it's a laptop. That way I'm in my office doing my work on a separate device from my phone. And then my phone does not have to be that thing that I'm attached to. I know a lot of people run their business from their phone, and that's great, and you can do that and be completely successful. I just have a hard time separating business and personal use when I'm doing both on one device. However, there's ways you can do it successfully. So do not think that you cannot be successful using your phone for everything, because you completely can. You just have to find a way to separate business and work. Business, work, right? I am a paper person, and I love paper. So this works for me. It might not work for you, but I have a lot of people asking me about that. I use a paper calendar system. I bought this A5 size planner off Amazon, and then I bought these little tabs off Amazon. So these are my months, right? January, February, and so forth. And then I bought these little inserts on Amazon as well. So what I do is I have these monthly spreads. And so I'm in the party planning business, which means that I'm gonna have parties. And so I indicate the weeks I'm available for parties by using these little tags. So they are actually these little Post-its that you can buy. And then what I do is I just cut them in half, because my calendar is small. And so I cut them smaller so that so that they fit. So however many parties I want that week, I will stick stickies on them. If I'm doing maybe in-home parties, these are all virtual parties. If I'm doing in-home parties, I'm gonna stick sticky tabs kind of throughout my month so that they're on there. The other thing that I do is that as I book parties, I write down who booked. Here is my November tab and my November, and then over here is my list of who's hosting for the month of November. And so my goal is to always have, X number of bookings every single month. And so I can see how close I'm getting to my goal as I am filling it in, right? So like for the next month that I'm working on, right, I'm gonna have 1 through however many I wanna book, and then I write their names down as I'm booking so that I can see how close I'm getting to my goal. The other thing is I also write down the number of new team members I wanna have, but I write down how many new team members I wanna have, what my goal is, and then I fill in the names as I welcome new team members. So again, I'm keeping that goal in front of me all the time, and then I'm tracking to see how close I'm getting to my goal. So I do that with my bookings, and I do it with my new team members. The other thing I do is fortunes in the follow-up, right? So I make a list on the back side of this. So here's my parties. Here is my follow-up list. So this month is a little bit light on follow-up, but these are the people that I need to follow up with because they potentially wanted to party with me in the month of November. And so I always have a follow-up list for every single month, no matter what it is. So that way I can just keep track of who I need to follow up with, what month I need to follow up with them. And it's for parties and team members. Sometimes it's just not the right time, and so I need to check back with them later when it might be a better time. And so I make a note of that as well on my calendar system. So each week of my calendar, so this is just the design that I bought, but basically my week is over here and my to-do list is over here. So every week I have a to-do list, but what I do is the night before I go in, I make my to-do list, I fill out my day on here, and then I have my specific tasks for that day. And the ones I get done, I cross out. The ones I don't get done, move into the next day. So it's just kind of an ongoing list for the week of what my to-dos are. And these are specific to-dos. Every day I'm gonna be like posting on social media. I'm gonna be checking my parties. Like I don't write that stuff on here necessarily. These are specific things. Like I need to, send gift certificates to so-and-so that just bought certificates, or I need to mail a prize to a team member or something. Those are very specific things. That's what's on my list. And then down here, so this is for my week, right? This is this week. I use paper clips so I know what week it is. These are my hosts that are hosting this week, and I make notes right here on this page for who my hosts are. And so when I send them catalogs in the mail, I make a note of that. When they tell me what they want on their wish list, I make a note of that. So if they share that they're interested in earning extra income, I make a note of that. So it's all noted right on here. Right at a glance. I write down what time zone they're in because I'm doing virtual parties, and so it's different time zones. So it's all right here in one spot. I don't have a bunch of pages everywhere. I don't have a binder for this where there's just a bunch of pages going on. This is just a system that works for me. Everyone is going to have a different system, but people ask me, what's your system? What are your systems? How are you so efficient with your time? Okay, so this is what works for me. Over on this side, it says Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? So, and then in here is where I write my specific coaching calls, my appointments, and I also write my business hours on here, so I know what my business hours are ahead of time. And so the business hours are basically the same thing that I put on this as this, and my business hours vary depending on the day because each day is a little bit different, and we have appointments and stuff on certain days and play dates on certain days. So I just make sure that I have that on here. So when I'm scheduling my coaching calls or my host calls, I have those within my business hours so that I'm making sure I'm staying on track with my schedule. So this is a schedule of someone who does the direct sales business like career time. Okay, so I am spending anywhere from 28 to 30 hours on my business every week, and some people might spend a lot more than that. Some people might spend a lot less. I mean, if you're working a full-time job, your schedule is not going to look like mine, so it's going to be very different. But for someone who is at the level in business that I am, this works really well for me, and I'm still bringing in the income that I want to bring in. And one more thing. My time on social media that I spend for fun, I schedule at the end of the day. So During the day, I am not on social media for my own fun, my own pleasure, my own surfing social media. So I give myself 30 minutes in the evening where I am on Instagram or I'm doing whatever. So during the day, my social media is for income producing activities. And then in the evening is when I have my own fun time. So I only give myself a half an hour for that. It's time blocked into my schedule every single day, but you want to keep it very separate so that you're not just getting sucked into things and getting distracted. All right, guys, I hope that helped.